G'day, Jimmy.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Yeah, how you going?
So they call you the gentle giant.
Yeah, a gentleman.
Gentleman giant.
Yeah.
Did you coin that term yourself, or was that?
I played in a town in the outback, sort of close to the border of Northern Territory, and there was a lot of people there who were from a certain village in Europe, and they were all quite short, and they thought I was like enormous. Like in normal circumstances, I am taller than most people, but these guys, I just towered over them. Basically, they coined the term because they were surprised that I was a musician and I was a sort of a genuinely polite person, and B, that I was so tall, and my band was quite short at the time. They were all under 6 foot. And they called me the Gentleman Giant. So
you thought that's going to catch on?
Yeah, I did. It's basically just been my nickname ever since.
And that's the name of your album?
It is, yep. The album that's coming out in December.
Is this your debut album?
It is my first album, yeah.
And how many albums have you done before this?
I've only done 2 EPs and also another EP with my own. I'm ready. Is everybody else ready?
Yep.
Alright. David?
We're going?
Yep.
W?
Yep.
So the first track, No Job, No Prospects.
Yeah.
Can you explain some of the techniques you used to record that?
We actually record the drums with Joachim, the drummer. He actually recorded that by using his brushes on the wall. And it actually has a pretty good sound. We had to take out the wall on the other side and put a pickup on it.
Okay.
And that was threaded through to the control room. And so you get that. So it actually sounds almost exactly the same as if you use a snare, but with a better narrative.
Okay. And the song itself, No Job, No Prospects.
It was about I used to live in a town in New South Wales, and I did a bit of work on the side for a certain let's say business, and I had to approach a person who had lent this business some money and ask very politely but very sort of kind of forcefully that he pay it up. And he said, "Look man, I've got no job, I've got no prospects,
Okay.
I'm not going to be able to do it." And that's when I realised that I couldn't do that kind of work anymore, and I kind of crossed over to the other side of that kind of business, and that's when I A, decided to continue with my music, and B, that's when I started to do a bit of private detective work.
And the next track, You're Going Below When You Die, this sounds kind of religious, this song.
Yeah.
But it's not, is it?
It is and it isn't. It's about, when I was younger, my parents being God-fearing folk, they used to say, we're going to give you a whipping because you're going below when you die. No, they didn't. They didn't ever do that. That was just words that they said. But it kind of...
So that scar is from something else?
Yeah, it was actually...
Can you explain the scar, the infamous scar?
It was a story that someone told me, actually. It didn't necessarily happen to me. It sort of coincided with what my parents used to say. It was about a man who actually... He had a pretty bad relationship, and he told me this. It wasn't him, his brother told me this later on, and what actually happened was that he slipped into depression, and eventually he just died of a broken heart. But he wanted to be, when he died, he wanted to be thrown into the water near where he met the woman who broke his heart on a cruise ship. So they took him out to sea in the dead of night. I don't think it's legal. And he went below, so to speak, when he died.
Right.
That's what that's about.
Girl, you smell like the fullness of life.
I'll just play it back for a sec. Can we try the guitar playing on the off?
How are we going to get rid of the radio signal?
See if you've got if you've got too many things doing the syncopated thing, it becomes too syncopated. But just, yeah.
Becomes constipated.
And this is a blues. This is a blues song, a bit of a swing number.
It's a bit of a swinging number. I actually used some horn players on this number, and
Can you tell me about how you found those horn players?
I actually found them busking in the street in that town that I mentioned before, which was Griffith, New South Wales. They were just busking in the street, and they're all in their 70s, perhaps 80s. They're all old fellas, and I found out that they're originally from New Orleans, believe it or not, which is, I guess, actually makes sense when you hear the horns that play on the album. And they came over to Australia as part of a circus troupe. They were the music. And they sort of ended up at I think it was Broken Hill or one of those towns up there, which is kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's a mining town, and you know they used to play for the miners when they were young. And basically they met their wives, and Australian wives. They married, they fell in love. They didn't get to play the horns that often though, because the circus, you know, the depression hit, and the circus era came and went. And they ended up just working as shearers for a long time. And it's my banjo, so settle down, messy.
Speaking of your banjo, that's got a bit of history behind it, doesn't it?
It does. It was actually given to me by one of those horn players, so I was very happy to play it on You're Going Below When You're Done, when we spoke about it before, which is very much the New Orleans style banjo. And they brought that over, the sax player, and yeah, it's all pretty good.
Heart carved from stone. Whose heart? What type of stone?
There is another story about that. After I made the decision to get away from the old gang, they gave me their blessing, and so it was like that's the anyway. I sort of drifted. I wanted to drift back to Brisbane, where I came from. And I sort of took my time, and a bit like, you know, Jack Kerouac on the road, you know, that kind of, when you're young, you know. And, excuse me, I met a stonemason up in Orange, and he actually needed someone to do the accounts for him, that sort of thing, because he was no good at that. He was only good at doing things with stone and passed down generation to generation. He wasn't a Freemason. Actually, he was a Freemason, but that's not why he was a Mason. He showed me the handshakes and everything was good. But everything he'd say had the word stone, like all these little phrases like stone the crows, leave no stone unturned. He used to say them all the time. Let's go get stoned, he'd say on a Friday night after knocking off. It wasn't my thing, but that's what he'd say. But the one that actually stuck with me, because I think it was one of his, after he did some work for a lady who had a large sort of house in the area, and she loved stone. He turned to me and said, you know, he'd had a relationship with her previously. Didn't work out, as so often happens with my songs. But he turned to me and said, you know, that lady, she's got a heart carved from stone. And that stuck with me, and I wrote it down in my book. And when it came time to write a song, I looked through, and that one caught my eye. Yeah. So there's
a lot about love and...
There's a lot about love on this album. Almost every one of the songs has something to do with a bit of love. You know, it's in our hearts.
Yeah, when we went out on that dance